In this week's Walser Wealth segment, we are talking about the retirement savings gap with wealth strategist and tax attorney Rebecca Walser. Good morning. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So we've talked a little bit about this gap.
Yes.
So I know that there is this gap that exists, but let's talk about why, explain a little bit more what it is and why this isn't so, why this is so important for people to understand.
All right, well, it's the retirement savings gap. It's anywhere they estimate from $7 trillion on the low end to $14 trillion on the high end.
Just in general, okay.
Trillion. That's with a T. So why do we have this gap, Carly? And the truth is, the reason we have this gap is, as the old school way that we've talked about, it used to be company pension. And when in the early 80s, the 401k came into prominence and we went to the do-it-yourself plan, unfortunately, looking back through historical documents, there's not really been anybody that stepped up and calculated what an individual worker would need to contribute to equate and equal what they would have gotten on a company pension.
Well, everything's going, I don't know how you would do that at that time anyways. Now we're here. Now we can look back.
Yes. And that's exactly why we have a retirement savings gap, because what happened was workers did not contribute enough to the do-it-yourself plan, and so they are not going to be able to replicate the company pension by a $7 to $14 trillion retirement savings gap. So what we have to do is we have to actually do the mathematical analysis, Carly, and we have to...
People don't like math so much sometimes.
I can walk you through it. I can make it really simple. Let's pull up our first graph, and this is what we call a Monte Carlo analysis. It's basically a Monte Carlo simulation, which lets us know whether the market is up or down or crashes or interest rates are up or down.
It doesn't matter where we're at now.
It does not matter. It's everything that could possibly happen wrapped into regression math analysis to give us a statistical probability. I know that's a lot of stuff.
It's for programs like these. All right.
So we actually use Vanguard here, and what we are trying to look at is for 30 years of time in retirement, if we have a 60-40 stock bond split in a portfolio, how much money do we have to have in our portfolio on the day we retire to have a very high statistical probability of being able to pull out $65,000 per year for 30 years? And so you can see here that our probability is 90%.
Okay.
If we have $1.55 million in a 60-40 stock bond portfolio on the day of retirement, we have a 90% probability that we will be able to pull out $65,000 per year.
So this is a good goal, like to say, okay, here's what we need.
We need $1.55 million. But the truth is, that doesn't even give us what we want, because ultimately what we need to know is, while we're working and contributing, what do we have to contribute on an annual basis to build up to 1.55? So that's where we go to our next graph, which will tell us at different age points. So what you can see here is what is the wonderful eighth wonder of the world, compound interest, time value of money. If you start when you're 25, Carly, and you have 40 years, if you start when you're 25, you only need to contribute $10,000 a year. $10,000 when you're 25, which could be a lot if you're only making in the 30s. It could be a third of your income, but still, that's what it is. When you're age 35, that almost doubles to $19,600. So 10 years later, you start 10 years later, and you've got to do $20,000 a year. If you wait till you're 45, you have to do $42,000 a year to get to that $1.55 million. And if you start when you're 50 and you only have 15 years left before retirement, $67,000 a year to put away to get to 1.55 by the time you retire at 65. We're using the age 65 here.
Now, what do you say to people who go, you know what, I don't want, they're afraid to look at the numbers and look at the reality? Or nervous too, not afraid, but nervous.
I will tell you what. I will tell you what. Whatever and however stark and however dire the situation is, it is going to be better than being poor in retirement.
Okay, so it's better to go ahead, face
the monster.
Action plans.
Of course, this is what we do. We figure it out. We reverse engineer. We figure it out, and then we come up with a doable plan.
Okay. Well, again, as we kind of take home, what do you want people to understand, certainly about that retirement gap?
You know, I think it's so sad that America is one of the richest in the history of all time, the richest countries in the world, and we have so many people that are going to be going into retirement unprepared and basically living on the Social Security poverty level, and it's just so sad, and we can do things to fix it. We've got to get the word out there. People have to know what it takes to make the plan work for them.
And I think they have to know, and I think they have to teach their future generations, their generations,
we absolutely.
What to do.
It's got to be out there. That's why we're here, Carly, because we want to shout it from the mountaintops if we could. Everybody's got to know this information.
All right. Well, thank you for helping us understand a little bit better. There again is the number to call today, the website as well, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, Carly.